Thousands of delegates are gathered in Johannesburg in South Africa for the 17th conference of the parties to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wildlife, Fauna and Flora. The CITES COP-17 conference is being held at the Sandton Convention Centre. It will run until the 5th of October. The CITES is an international agreement between governments which regulates international trade in wild fauna and flora. Its aim is to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. Let's get you more now on that story. I'm joined live from the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg by CCTV's Yolisa Njamela. Yolisa, the CITES conference begins today. What are some of the topics likely to be high on the agenda?
Well, all the eyes of the environmental world will be firmly focused here behind us at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg, South Africa. President Jacob Zuma opened officially the conference about an hour and a half ago. Firmly on the agenda is the fate of the endangered species of the world, species such as the horn, the sharks, pangolin, rosewood, and those that are referred to as charismatic, and of course those that are less known but not less endangered. Those are going to be firmly on the agenda. If I can make an example, for instance, with the rhino horn trade, there are two sides of the debate that have ensued over the past few years. Some are saying rhino should be legalized, rhino trade should be legalized, because they believe that that will help with the poaching issue, because essentially the trade, or rather the fact that legalization will ensure that there is no more poaching, or at least it will substantially decrease poaching, because the demand will be met by the sufficient supply. While on the other hand, the other ones are saying, well, over the years, rhino is becoming extinct rather. We are losing the rhino species because of poaching. And if we legalize this, there frankly won't be enough rhino horn to go around to satisfy those who want rhino horn. So we're expecting those kind of debates, and we're expecting them to heat up here behind me.
Right, so Yolisa, what strides have been made since the last CITES conference, and how important is this conference?
Well, having spoken to a number of leaders, if you like, within CITES, they believe that the system that they introduced, that they use to categorize these endangered species, is firmly working. It has been working over the years, especially since the last gathering. For instance, they use a system that is categorizing the animals according to what they call appendices. Appendix 1, if a species belongs to Appendix 1, it means commercial trade is totally banned. If a species belongs to Appendix 2, it would mean that commercial trade is allowed, but the participating states must ensure that that species is protected sufficiently. If it belongs to Appendix 3, it would mean that there is a member state, or there are member states that are trying to protect a certain species and are asking other states to do the same. So CITES believes that over the years they have managed to ensure that that system is working sufficiently, especially from the last conference.
So, Yolisa, ivory trade, just like you mentioned a little earlier, is among the most controversial topics to be tackled by experts there. South Africa and others in that region want ivory trade to be regulated and unregulated, while other countries such as Kenya are pushing for a total ban. So the question is, are we likely to see consensus on touchy topics such as this one? What are experts saying?
Well, it's highly unlikely that they'll find each other. Experts, for instance, are saying by the end of this conference in 2 weeks, these two sides will still be far apart and they will not find one another. And experts are baffled by the fact that Africa would seem like they're not speaking with a united voice when it comes to this. For instance, in terms of South Africa want it to be legalized and regulated. And earlier on this week, we spoke to Tia Carroll, who's a project manager of CITES South Africa, to just understand what South Africa's position is when it comes to this.
Africa's elephants remain under threat from poachers. The poachers want to kill the elephants for their ivory tusks. South Africa, Zimbabwe and Namibia have asked for a global ban on ivory trade to be lifted. They want the proceeds of the national stockpiles of tusks to, among other things, support families that live close to elephants.
From our side, we submitted a document on the decision-making mechanism for a process of trade in ivory, and that document relates to a compromise position that was reached in 2007 when we were allowed to sell ivory as South Africa, Namibia and Botswana. So that agreement that was reached included that we will not ask for ivory sales for a period of 9 years, provided we develop this decision-making mechanism, and of course we developed an African Elephant Action Plan moving forward.
In a document submitted to CITES, South Africa, Zimbabwe and Namibia say if trade is not permitted, they will seek to nullify the ban on the principle that CITES failed to act on its mandate to investigate the matter.
What we are asking is for a process to be put in place to guide the process relating to decisions on ivory sales. So what we are asking is that we specified conditions that must be met by range states and by consumer states and reporting processes, etc., that will then enable us to potentially trade in the future in ivory.
The ban on trade in ivory products was imposed in 1989. The three countries say the 1989 trade ban promoted poaching and that an alternative solution is required. They claim a formal legal trade would increase the supply of ivory into the market, reducing its price and crowding out illegal competitors.
The big concern, of course, for a lot of countries are the issues around poaching, and as South Africa we are also very concerned about the levels of poaching that's taking place, but we do feel that there should be a focus on addressing the key drivers of poaching, and those of course relates to issues relating to legislation, lack of legislation, lack of enforcement, lack of cooperation between various countries. All those things should be strengthened. Issues around corruption that must be addressed, but then also for range states, countries with elephants, there's a need to address important issues like human-wildlife conflict.
Some critics are concerned that if CITES allows ivory to be traded, the demand could skyrocket.
There are different views. Unfortunately, the discussions relating to trade in ivory is a topic that unfortunately cause a lot of polarization. There are different views on the matter. Some countries are of the view that we should close down all markets for ivory. South Africa would like to keep our opportunities and our options open, and we do agree that yes, unregulated markets should be addressed and there should be strong action to address those unregulated markets. But where markets are regulated and well regulated and enforcement is in place, there is no need to close those markets down.
For their request to pass, the three countries will need the support of 2/3 of the 183 CITES member states. Yolisa Njamela, CCTV, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, each member state will be tussling for that 2/3 to get a go or to get approval to ensure that their proposals or their submissions are approved. Back to you in the studio.
Yolisa Njamela joining us live there in Johannesburg. Many thanks, Yolisa. Well, earlier, CCTV sat down with Edna Molewa. She's the South African Minister of Water and Environmental Affairs. She spoke about the country's partnership with China and hopes for the summit. Take a look.
We do think that CITES is going to be a very exciting meeting, the biggest ever that has actually happened. Very interesting topics put there. And we do think that South Africa will really once again prevail and have parties agreeing in certain positions and various positions that they have actually proposed. And this will be a good outcome, we believe. As South Africans, certainly will be showcasing majority of our success stories. One of them is how we've been dealing with rhino even under the attack where we are. Well, first of all, the fact that South Africa is the country in the world that has got the highest number of rhino. This is a conservation success story on its own. So because we are under attack, we have actually now started fighting. And in this fight, we're also succeeding. So there will be external activities where we'll be showcasing this and really saying to people, this is the way to go, and sharing. Also, by the way, learning from other people, because we're not just going to be giving and just telling people of what we're doing, but learning from other people as well. We do need China right at the helm of things so that we can, first of all, continue to work together to dispel these myths that are existing right now that people actually allege that lead to rhino horn being poached. And therefore, in that working together, we can reach out to the massive number of people out there working together. We have signed an MOU with China. We have actually agreed on using technology and developing technology together of tracking devices and all those things that we actually have to work together on. Reduction, management in its entirety, that's why we're looking forward to working with our counterparts in China.